Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of MFP Live. Now that we are weekly, it seems, which we decided to do during Women's History Month to interview some amazing women. I'm here with my co-host and co-founder of the Mississippi Free Press, the publisher, Kimberly Griffin. Hello, Kimberly. How are you?
Hello, hello.
And we have a really special guest this week. Tracey DeVries is the executive director of the Women's Foundation of Mississippi. I said that correct, right? I used to know it as the Women's Fund.
Yes.
So I've been in Jackson for a while, so I have to second guess myself as I go. But welcome to the show, Tracey. We're so happy to have you.
I am delighted to be here, and I also want to say happy 1 year. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like we'll never forget when our birthday was, because it was like the same day as the pandemic, basically, or the same week. So it has been quite the year, I must say, as we all know. So Tracey, I don't know a whole lot about you and kind of your background before you took this position. So I would love to just kind of start out, if we can, just with you talking a little bit about yourself and what people need to know about you.
I would be happy to share, and tell me when I go on too long.
No, it's okay.
So I come to the sort of world of women's issues and feminism. Honestly, I think my mom was an activist for many years. She was focused largely on access to public school for individuals with disabilities, my brother specifically. So most of my growing up time was spent on court cases and IEP hearings and marching on Washington and congressional hearings, and just really watching my mother try and make change. So I think that's probably a big driver in terms of just how I think about things and what I do and why I do. And my grandmother was the first the first female principal of a school in Grand Rapids, Michigan, way back in the day, and got her master's degree from Michigan State, where I also went to school. So I think I come from a fairly good and long line of women leaders, and that is sort of where the women's space is for me. But I will say that my career, though, started in the nonprofit world in Washington, D.C. 20 plus years ago. I worked for Special Olympics International for 18 years. And then I also worked at the headquarters of the American Red Cross, doing fundraising for that organization for a few years as well. So my background is really in nonprofit work, fundraising, organizational development, managing programs and projects. Did a big grant from the U.S. Department of Education that Special Olympics still manages to do inclusion work in schools. So that's where I was schooled in how to work in nonprofits. And this position opened up at the same time that I got married and was moving to Mississippi anyway. So I applied. Wow. Yeah. So, it was a lot of things.
So was that because of a job or because a Mississippi job? Why were you moving to Mississippi anyway?
Well, I was getting married, and my husband was here. And so for a variety of reasons, it was just easier for me to come here than vice versa. And so that's what we did. And at the same time, I was interviewing for this position, and literally all of those things sort of just lined up together. So that's how it happened, I guess, meant to be, perhaps.
Right. Well, you're kind of like my partner, Todd, who wasn't from Mississippi and came to Mississippi because I was from Mississippi. So you're kind of in that position. Yep. So before I kick it to Kimberly, I want to ask you, talk a little bit about that. Was there Mississippi shock? What was it like to transition to just living in Mississippi, not just doing the work, but living there?
Well, on this is everybody's favorite question, and I actually don't know that I've come up with the best answer to it yet, but obviously it's different. in some ways it's really good different. So traffic is not something that I have to live with anymore. And that's really delightful. On the flip side, I no longer have access to the metro and easy cabs and Ubers in sort of the same way, right? So, you know, there are trade-offs like that. I can no longer afford to buy the house in DC that I sold when I left. Right. So, you know, some of those things, it's like, yeah, okay, well, that's, you know, there's some very big differences there. You know, people here are definitely friendlier. That was one of the things that I would have culture shock going back and forth. Before I actually formally moved here, I would come and spend a week or two here and then go back. And, you know, people are really friendly and they would like want to wave at you. And I was always like, why are you, do I know you? Are you talking to like, so I actually had to become friendlier than I had grown up being moving here. So, you know, those things are just kind of the fun things. But I will say that, you know, there are also things that are sort of surprising to me. One of the things that I just could not wrap my head around, the lack of sidewalks. You know, so like some of those infrastructure things are noticeable to me. You know, I was driving one day and I saw a JTran bus dropping someone off on the frontage on 55. And it was somebody in a wheelchair. And it was a motorized one, but I'm watching them like offload this human being who then has to navigate with no sidewalks to wherever it was that he was going with the mode of transportation that he had. So, you know, some of those infrastructure things are still, they hit me sometimes. You know, I'm like, what's that? That doesn't seem to make any sense.
Well, for me, moving back after 18 years from, you know, New York and places with more of an outdoor walking, biking culture, etc. And that's difficult. I hear you. You know, right here in my own neighborhood, there's sidewalks in spots, and then they just run out. You know, I mean, we just walk in the street. That's what you do. Fortunately, we can kind of in this neighborhood, but you can't do that like on the frontage road or in some of these other places. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, those are the things that I think are the most stark, some of the infrastructure issues. And again, in some ways, it's kind of nice that the less traffic, those things. But on the flip side, I think that, you know, in the last month has really demonstrated that issue in a really stark way. So
that's right. We kicked too many cans down the road, but
absolutely.
So Tracey, I feel like I know quite a bit about your organization's history. I feel like I was at some of the first like mixers they had. But a lot of people don't know the history, where you started and what your goals are now. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that'd be good for our viewers to know.
Sure. So the Women's Foundation of Mississippi, as Donna mentioned, actually started as the Women's Fund. It started as a fund housed at what is actually now the Community Foundation for Mississippi. At the time, it was the Community Foundation of Greater Jackson. And so, you know, obviously they are really wonderful in terms of being, I think, supportive of organizations in the state and providing sort of that ability to create a thing, right? I mean, I think that that's a really amazing thing that they do.
No question.
Yeah. Well, and so this is all before my time, you know, but yeah, so we started as a fund at the Community Foundation. And then by 2008, we were actually able to raise enough funds on our own to become our own thing. And so at the very end of 2008, we got our C3 status. And there you see the Carol Penick was the founding executive director and did really a tremendous job of taking the organization to the next level and making it into the thing that it is today. Yeah, so I think one of the things that's interesting about the organization is that we are a foundation, right? That's in our name. And so we do grant making. That's a lot of what our program is. We invest in a variety of things focused on economic security for women across the state. What people don't think always understand is that we also raise money like any nonprofit does, right? So on the one hand, like, let me just say that we are very lucky to have had some really wonderful donors over the years who have provided funding for endowment for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have endowments to rely on, but we are nowhere near the size of something like, say, a Kellogg. So we're not that kind of foundation.
Right. We get it.
I would love to be. If anyone wants to talk to me about that, come on. But that's not it. But we do. But we do have, I think, a pretty good capacity now to raise funds and to actually work with some national foundations too, who are interested in investing in Mississippi. And I think one of the reasons that they like working with us is that we do have this gender lens, where we focus on women. And they often work with us in sort of an intermediary capacity where we can manage sort of some smaller projects and programs where, for their portfolios, that would be, it's just a different scale, right? So we invest in a variety of things. A lot of what we're doing currently is under our Access to Opportunity umbrella. Those are investments in degree and skills training programs, a lot of times at community colleges, but not exclusively. We also do some two-generation work, so things where, for us moms, but parents and children are receiving sort of co-interventions. Oh, excuse me. There's pollen in the air.
There it is.
It's a fair amount of it.
It's this year's crazy. Yeah. You understand.
So we do that two-generation work, and then we also invest in teen pregnancy prevention activities, a variety of different things in that space, and that's something that we've been looking at for many years.
You talked about, you hit on job and skill training and that kind of access. One of the things that I didn't know you did until I started talking with Blake, who's your communications director. You have a report and it talks about quality employment for women in Mississippi. And when I started reading that report and the definition of quality employment, because a lot of times we focus on are you employed?
Right.
What is quality employment? And you talk to us a little bit about that report.
Yeah, so the report was done so that we could really better understand just the landscape, what job opportunities there are, what access there is. That's what it's called. What it came back and told us was that, most people think that to have a good job means that you have a job and you're getting paid decently, right? Like, so sure, that's obvious. Having a good salary is an important piece. But I think the thing that was really more important from that report, and that so many of us have to continue to think about, is what about the other things that come with employment that are really, really important, especially to women and women who have families? Is there access to healthcare benefits? And what does that access even look like? Like, how much is that? How much is the employer paying? How much is the family paying? Like, what does that look like? Are there opportunities to build wealth? Meaning, is there any kind of 401k type of program, some kind of retirement vehicle? Is there access to paid time off? That's actually a really big thing. And what does that even look like? And finally, is the employment year round? One of the things that we found is that even for some folks who are employed, they may not be employed in what would be considered year round full time with access to all of those benefits. And realistically, when you don't, just one example, if you don't have access to some kind of 401k or savings plan, the opportunity to build wealth for yourself or your family over time is severely limited. There are a lot of studies out there now about all of this, but there's the income gap, which we all know about. There's also a significant wealth gap, the ability to actually build wealth and have that capacity to have your 3 months of saving or more, be able to build for your retirement. So the report really looks at all of those things and kind of tries to say, these are the kinds of jobs that offer all of those quality indicators. These are the kinds of jobs that are not, and this is where women are on that spectrum. The average salary for a woman working full-time year-round in Mississippi, I believe, was $35,000 was what the study showed us, which is obviously not a lot. And then when you break it down and you look further, it's actually, no, sorry. The average number was 30,000. White women were at 35,000. Black women were at 30,000, and then Hispanic women were at, I think, 28,000. So, when you start looking deeper into the gap, when you're not just talking about gender, but you're also talking about race, you start to see some really big situations happening there. And I think the report literally says, if we were to just close that wage gap, we could actually cut poverty in Mississippi in half.
That kind of brings a question to mind for me, as, someone who's not this publication, but the other one who's been a small business owner as a woman in the state. I haven't read the report, but I'm curious if what you're aware of, what kinds of research or however you would address this, the issues that women face getting support for their businesses in the state, such as investment. I think it gets into kind of the sexism in the state, and as far as, because, I always look at a piece of this conversation as, first of all, we need more women running businesses, but then we also need more people supporting women running businesses.
That's right.
And whether that's, and it could be, people supporting nonprofits run by women, obviously. And I don't say that fully in a self-serving way, but so that you can pay better, or so that you can, and so it's kind of this, I guess I'm talking about the systemic part of it, because I think that there are a lot of, I've known a lot of women business owners who work really, really hard and then end up kind of hitting some sort of ceiling, so that then they have a difficult time supporting themselves, even if they do amazing work. So I'm curious what you would add to that piece of it.
Yeah, so this is something that I just find really interesting myself, and have actually been doing a little bit of outreach to some sister women's funds and other organizations to kind of understand what they're doing, because this is an area that I'm just interested in and don't know enough about what the gaps are, but there are definitely gaps, right? There are gaps for women applying for loans. There are gaps for women being approved for loans. I think you can look at the example of the woman who's doing the tech hub. My understanding is that she had a very difficult time navigating the system, and then finally getting approved to be able to move forward with her project. I don't dare to speak on that because I don't know enough, but we know that there's an access challenge and an access problem. One of the things, though, that I learned in my outreach to other friends was that one challenge is that the businesses that are being run by some women, not by all women, but by some women, are sort of in this place where they are successful to the degree that they are supporting that the business is in the black, that the business is serving whatever it is that they're doing, but it's being run in a way that is woman friendly. And this is like unfamiliar to those who make loans, right? So and this is something that I'm digging into more to sort of better understand what that looks like, and whether that's also a problem here. I'd love for us, our organization, to be in a position to maybe do some additional research around that and try and understand it more. But what I heard was, sometimes these are businesses that are being run by women who are also parenting at home, and, because it may not have a storefront, or it may not be something that sounds usual, but is in fact successful, they're having a hard time getting those loans, because their goal may not be to set up something that's going to be franchised to, 53 other locations or whatever. Their goal is to be successful, provide for their family, provide a service to their community, but that doesn't always translate to the business plan that gets approved. So, that's what my gut is, that there's a lot of that ends up happening, as well as just sort of the thing that happens when you're a woman and you walk in and you say, I have a really good plan. Can you support me with that?
Right.
There's this, when I bought my first house in DC, my lender could not, and this was like, what year was it? 2009. This was 10, 12, 13 years ago. And they were like, you by yourself? And I was like, yes, I've actually worked really hard and didn't do anything during the I didn't do anything during the crazy mortgage years. I didn't do any of that stuff. I worked really hard to be able to do something like this. And so, yes, just me by myself. And they I think there's still a mindset, I have a hard time sort of grasping the idea that I think it was actually maybe the year I was born, but I don't want to date myself. When women could actually get a credit card on their own without a husband or a father or some other male in their lives approving it. And so I think this lingers. It just lingers. This issue continues to linger. And I think that's one of the challenges that women face out there. Even though the rules say, you don't that doesn't apply anymore. There's this lingering thing that's out there.
Well, and part of the reason I ask you the question is because I think that needs to be part of the conversation, because if we're going to, if that from the business end of things, women need enough women or women-friendly businesses, which may not be run by women. We'd like more of those, right? But need to have access to all sorts of things, and right here in the state of Mississippi, people need to think about how their sexism gets in the way, even if it's implicit, right? Of those kinds of things. I mean, I could tell a million stories. I won't, but and that women need to be at tables and they need to be taken seriously and all of these other issues. So, because a lot of women are going to be the first people who are going to, to do more for their employees if they have the if they have the ability to, right? So I guess I'm always a pipeline person too. It's like, so let's not just focus on kind of the outcome part of it, which we have to do too, but why is that true? And why? So that's kind of the reason I raised that issue. Now I think I wanted to ask you a question about kind of women and maybe women employment and from the employment and the business side during COVID-19. And, just kind of in general, what have you learned or observed that you think is interesting that's going on out there?
Well, so I'm going to begin by saying something a little bit flippant, but it sort of resonates. So I had a Zoom brunch a few weeks ago with some longtime friends. And one of the things that we were discussing on that was, I can't remember who said it. It might've been me, but basically I said, if one more person asks me what's for dinner, I'm going to lose it. Right.
Yeah.
Which is such a small little piece of what's going on. I mean, we know that women do more in the home all the time, right? Like there are studies about it. The Gates Foundation put out a study that shows that wherever you are in the world, whatever the numbers are, women are doing at least twice as much homework as men who may be in the household as well. So this has always been true. I think that the pandemic has really shone a light on what's happening with that in a way that is, it can't be ignored, but to be honest, I have this feeling that it is kind of being ignored, right? There's this sort of sense where it's like, well, that's the mom. So sure, she's going to do the homeschooling and the work and what's for dinner and all of the things. And it's going to be fine because women are amazing and they can multitask and it's going to be fine. And then we'll get out of this and then we'll just go back to what we were doing before. People are talking about this issue and it's clear, women have left the workforce and huge numbers. Every time you look, the numbers are, you just kind of are like, and, when you also look at it broken down by all of the other things, right? So the kinds of jobs, I'm really fortunate in that I'm able to work from home and keep on doing my job. And I don't have kids in the home, so I'm not homeschooling. So I feel very fortunate that I'm not facing any of those things. But even on our team, we have some folks who've got kids at home. And so I'm just trying to do all the things I can to make sure that they are supported, can continue to do their job, do not have to be bound to this whole 9 to 5, you're going to be in your seat and I'm going to be able to see you and all of that stuff. It's we're just not doing that. We're having a lot of grace. And so for places where you can do that, that's really wonderful. It's still, I think, incredibly stressful to have to be homeschooling and taking care of your job at the same time. More stressful, though, I think, are the number of, well, not more stressful, as stressful in a different way, are the number of people who are having to make really tough decisions. So the frontline workers, right? There are a lot of women who are in these frontline worker positions, whether we're talking about healthcare or working in retail or what have you. And to be blunt, a lot of these are also lower paying jobs. So you are also struggling with those kinds of issues of potentially cut back hours or more hours or whichever way it is. And folks are having to make really tough decisions about childcare. Who's going to take care of my kid? I have to keep my job. Or they've worked in a profession where their job is no longer available to them. I mean, there's so many different, there's not one answer to what this is, right? Like there's not one, or I shouldn't say there isn't one Band-Aid. There is one answer. We need to value the work that women do and find a way to make sure that there is a societal safety net, a community that allows women to do the work that they would like to do and be able to do that, and also not have to make these terrible choices when it comes to work versus kids. And this has always been a problem. This has always been a situation. It's just that it's so magnified right now. So many of us can see it in a way that maybe was not seen or as appreciated or known or out there. But this has always been.
Right. It's not like we've solved it. It's just
this is it.
Magnified.
It's just
right.
Yeah, I mean, you think about now women are doing 4 times what they were doing, because if you're the caregiver of children and the caregiver of parents, and you manage your home and you work a full-time job, you know, that stressor, at some point you self-select yourself. If you have the privilege of, I have a friend who's a physician. She's working a day and a half. That's all she can do.
Yep.
The last thing we need is a woman physician to pull herself out of the workforce right now.
Right.
But she had to. She couldn't. There was no other way to do it. So one of the things that I want to go back, kind of circle back to when we were talking about employment. One of the things you guys talk about and work on and study is equal pay in Mississippi. Now, you've already talked about how it's not equal, even in a quality situation. It's still not, even in a decent situation. Talk about the history of equal pay in the United States, if you feel like throwing that in. I know a little bit about it. I know some states haven't ratified that amendment yet. Right. And talk a little bit about what we can do in Mississippi, what we need in Mississippi to create an equal pay structure. Why aren't we there yet?
Well, I'm definitely not a historian, so I will not.
Right.
I will not claim that. But this is Mississippi is the only state in the country at this point that has not passed its own equal pay legislation. Alabama did it last year. No, not last year, the year before. This whole 2020 is also 2021. Is hard for me. I keep like
there are no markers. You
like,
didn't have a place where you went for vacation.
No. So Mississippi is actually the last state to pass state-based equal pay legislation. And we actually, the Women's Foundation of Mississippi has a program called the Mississippi Women's Policy Institute. It's a fellowship program. We created it based on a program that our sister foundation in California created 20 plus years ago. But essentially what it is an opportunity for women who are willing and interested to participate in a training program where we provide sort of the guts of like, this is how the sausage is made. This is what this looks like. Here's how committees work or don't work. Let's talk a little bit about the players and the issues, talk a little bit about policy, what the needs are, policy briefings, and a wide array of, things like, okay, you may only have 2 minutes to make your pitch to somebody who could support you. What's your elevator speech? So the fellowship, that training program is pretty robust. But then what we do is we say, your group now has the opportunity to pick a piece of legislation or a project that you want to work on and see how far you can get it. So back in it would have been the 2020 legislative session. One of our cohorts said that they wanted to work on equal pay, which was great news. They ended up partnering with a couple of other organizations, and the Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable and the Mississippi Women's Economic Security Initiative have been working on this for many, many, many years. They're for sure the lead in this space. Anyway, they were actually it seemed like they were getting somewhere and might have actually gotten this out of committee and moving. And then the pandemic actually shut down and derailed and delayed everything. So it kind of, it sadly died. I actually really thought that there was some good momentum for it in last year's session. So I think all of that has to start again. The thing that I have heard when I ask the question as to, why can't we have one? We're the last one. Let's just do this thing. Is, well, there's federal legislation to cover that. So we don't really need to have that. And I don't understand that. I don't understand that. I think it's important to be able to say to the women-led households in this state, we value you. We value your work. We think that equal pay is important. I don't know how that's not important.
Well, it is Mississippi.
I know, but it's still just,
I know. No,
I'm just
with you. Yeah. Yep. I know. We're from, Kimberly and I are from Mississippi. It's like, we love the place, but there are things that make us crazy, but that's part of the reason we're doing what we're doing, but
there are. But it's just such a gap, right? It's like, if you think about it logically, if we're going to say that, we value children, we want children to be safe, and we want children to be whatever, okay, great. But then you have to value women for that to also be true. Those things actually go together. And you have not asked me this question, but I'm going to keep on talking about it.
Please do. I love it.
We love it.
I think there's a narrative that has to get changed. And I have zero experience in this space, by the way. So I'm kind of, but there's this narrative where, all of this is okay. And I think we have to figure out a way to change the narrative around the value of women. And until we do that, I don't think we're going to see a lot of significant change. And and narrative change, I think, is that's a generational thing, right? That's the kind of thing where you have to focus in on telling a different story and probably to the next generation. I feel so oftentimes like when we have events, we're talking to ourselves, we're talking to women. Sometimes men come, and when they do, I'm delighted. I'm like, hey, and I try to not latch on to them and be, what are you doing here? I don't, I want them to keep coming back. I don't want them to be uncomfortable. But it's you're here. And so I think part of this is really about working with this next generation on we are equal. Okay. But also kind of trying to weave that into my generation, others, what have you. But it's, there's a narrative that happens. And even if you're sort of, aware and you're a feminist and whatever, this thing is still in all of our brains, there's this, I've seen myself do it. I'm in a meeting room full of men, and you kind of interact a little bit differently because there's this thing. And so I think, in order for us to get to a new place, I think that we've got to start investing in that and spending time with boys on it. Right.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I know it won't come as any surprise to you, but a big part of what we're working on is narrative change. And I would even say that narrative change is at the heart of what we're working on with the Mississippi Free Press, but what we've been doing for almost 20 years with the Jackson Free Press. It's not just on gender issues. Obviously, race was a huge part of it. young people, has been a real, certainly one of my obsessions. We done the Mississippi Youth Media Project, and we plan to bring it back post-pandemic, hopefully as part of MFP. But gender issues is something that we're putting front and center in what we're doing here for that precise reason. Now, we didn't choose to do this project, and I don't think there'd be anything wrong with doing this. But we didn't choose to do the Mississippi Free Press as a women's publication, though, because it's a news publication that happens to be run by women, where we have some, a remarkable team, including we have remarkable men who speak up for women, right? That's really important, I think. And we don't tell them coming in the door, you've got to, get out there on Twitter and, and do those things. These are just the people that we have learned to bring close at this point and to keep close. And so I think it's a real mix, but it's also, you're talking about narrative change. I think it's, a lot of it is the history and the story and the data, right? That we're really talking about these things. And also, and I agree with you generationally, and we've seen a lot of generational, I think, effects of what we've done at the Jackson Free Press already. But it's also communicating it to, let's just be honest, people, including women, as the point you made, who are our age or older, and not that we're all the same age, I'm the oldest, but to think about what they're saying and doing, or how they're responding to a woman expressing her opinion or whatever the case might be. Are they inviting women, like we were talking about earlier, into the same rooms? Are they looking at, instead of just kind of passing the funds back and forth between the same wealthy men, are they kind of spreading the wealth, to help organizations that aren't just serving women, but that are, doing the kind of work that your organization does, that it's serving women, sure, but it's also serving it's serving society and families and the workplace. And, so it hits on everybody. So that's kind of my speech back in response to yours, because I totally agree with you, but Mississippi, one of the problems Mississippi has, and then I'm gonna kick it to one of you. You got to take it.
Okay, I'll take it. I have thoughts.
You're gonna take it next, because Kimberly's good on this too, so we'll let her do it. But it's like I think on gender issues and race, certainly it's always been this way as well. But just not talk about it, and just go along to get along, with this just kind of abject sexism. This, you don't want to. Afraid to be in a room with somebody because they might disagree with you, kind of thing, and that I think I suspect all three of us are going to agree that this is not a healthy approach for our state. Now, Kimberly, take it away from me.
And then I'm going to send it back to Tracey. So one of the things that we have been consistently talking about in the Mississippi Free Press, and Donna and I talk about all the time, and one day we're actually going to have an expert on that talks about this, is the decolonization of our language, the decolonization of our behavior, the decolonization. And that's, and we think of that in race, and I always have until maybe the last 3 years, because that decolonization also is gender, it helps with gender bias. Because the colonization, when you think about people being colonized, you think about people coming from a European country, taking over a country that's not a European country and changing their culture or imposing their culture. Well, think about what those countries were like before they got there. Some of them were matriarchal. So this is this language, the way we think, the way we talk. One of the things, and I'm in MFP stream listeners, I may be repeating myself. Y'all tell me I won't say this story again.
The master thing again.
I won't say that. No, I know that one. I won't repeat that one again.
Okay.
But this idea, one of the things I hear over and over again, and it sends me over the edge, is this idea that women can't be friends.
Oh.
So this, like, you hear people, well, women don't really like me. I don't really get along with women. And I always ask people, who is benefiting from that thought in your head? It's not you.
That's right.
Who is benefiting you dividing yourself from people like you who you may have things in common with, that you have camaraderie and people who will cheer you on? I said, who told you that? And why do you believe it? And it's like all these layers in society that we're unraveling. I mean, from our language to the way we think about ourselves. And one of the things I want women to work on is we continually operate in our own best interest. We don't operate in our own best interest. Like, we tell people tell us a narrative about what is in our own best interest. And we go, oh, well, I should do that thing because that will keep me safe from whatever it is that will not be safe. So that's I'm working on that, and that's my thought. So let's transition a little bit, because this is one of the things one of my kind of favorite programs or favorite mission points that you guys have, and that is student mothers and getting them through school and trained. Because in Mississippi, we have a lot of folks that want to make sure that people have children, and then we kind of don't help those people from point A to point B to be able to support themselves and this child.
Yeah.
So
pro-birth,
pro-birth, pro-birth, not pro-life, not pro-mother being educated, debt-free, not pro-supporting her, making sure she has childcare. That's my TED Talk. Talk a little bit about the numbers in our state, because we do know that student mothers, that's college and high school, or will pull themselves from the workforce or pull themselves out of educational systems.
Yeah, that's I'm going to answer that question, but one of the things that I wanted to say in response to what you were just talking about is this issue around how we talk about things. I heard someone recently say Black people can't get loans, women can't get loans, right? So it's like, it's a very sort of blame-based mentality, right? Like, you can't get that. But the real thing is, banks don't give loans to women, right? And so, like, finding.
Wow, Tracey.
We've said the same ish, right? Like, ish.
Donna may have you writing something in
I know, right? I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
But I think that that's like one of the really important things when we are looking at all of these issues is, and I think that's how these things get into your head too, right? Like, somewhere along the way, somebody said women can't get loans. And
Women
so you're like, oh, well,
girls can't do math.
Girls can't do math.
Same kind of like stereotypes. Yeah.
She's not your friend. Like, that whole thing is, it's just in there. So, anyway, I do think that we all have to kind of start thinking about and talking differently about how we position those sorts of things. But to answer your question, so we have been working with community college campuses across the state for, I don't know, since 2014 or 15, before I was here. And we have been doing a variety of things to help women get their degrees faster. And let me just say that one of the reasons that we've focused on community colleges is because they are in many ways more accessible for lots of reasons, and depending on the program, can in fact lead to to one of those good jobs. We did research and we found that it was taking 7 years to complete a 2-year degree, which is crazy, right? Like, that's a long time. And when you look at the completion rates, they're not all that great. When you look at different you can Google this and look at it year to year, but you've got sort of graduation rates that are ranging from like 30% to maybe 45, if you're lucky. Now, to be fair, some of these students are actually transferring maybe to a 4-year program, or they've gone somewhere else, and that explains a little bit of it. But this is a real problem. It's a real problem for sure for women, but for students going to school, it's a problem. And so we did the research and we said, what the heck is going on? What's happening? Why are people not graduating? Why is it taking so long? And we found the things that you would assume. So Lack of access to childcare potentially was a really big part. Transportation was a big deal. You know, we talked about this at the beginning. If there's no public transportation and you can only get to school with a car, and maybe you share a car with your spouse or your mom or whatever, you know, those are all factors. The other thing is the emergency expense, right? So there's a ton of research out there on this topic, but most middle-class Americans don't actually have enough savings to survive an emergency expense, right? Like that's something that is real and is happening to all kinds of people, not just potentially younger women who are trying to get their degree. So we said, okay, how can we help with this? And so we've been working again across the state at virtually all of the campuses at one time or another, maybe not all at the same time, but have continued to do this work where we're supporting things like mentorship programs. We're supporting things like trying to figure out ways to provide better access to childcare for parenting students, offering emergency funds, like literally funds where it's like, if you're going to stay in school and you're not going to school because you have a $250 car fix that you can't afford right now, and you're having to make the choice between books and food and like those kinds of things. We said, we're just not going to, like, that shouldn't be a problem. Like your one-time emergency or your one-time thing where you got your student loans, you got the, maybe mom was able to help you with something, like whatever it was, you managed to like get all of this stuff, and school's expensive, right? Especially some of these programs where you have to have like other bits and then licensing and all of that stuff. Like these, like it's expensive.
Right.
And so we just said, let's not mess with that. Let's see what we can do to help with that situation. And so we've been working with campuses to do all of these different kinds of programs based on sort of them telling us what they think their needs really are and how we can best support them. But, you know, we've been seeing north of 80% graduation rates through these kinds of programs.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's been a really, that's been really wonderful. And these are students who are completing their degrees in sort of the right time period, right? Like maybe they go a semester longer, but they're not going 7 years.
Right. That's amazing.
Well, it's amazing, but also people are very uncomfortable with it. There's a lack of comfort.
Tell us why people are uncomfortable with it.
Well, there's this, I mean, I think there's just this idea of like, you shouldn't, you know, don't be just giving out money. I'm like, but we're not, like, just like, okay, fine. Does it make you feel better if we paid for tuition instead of for, you know, a one-time medical expense, like that kept them in school and now they've got a degree and they're contributing, they're a tax-paying human being in Mississippi now, and they've gotten themselves a job and have like health insurance, and like that's really good. So that's the intervention. And I'm not like, this isn't just about, you know, here, but like you sort of like these kinds of programs, you know, like there's like this discomfort with it, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Or this idea you have to earn something.
That's right.
That you didn't earn it. You know, we see that same thing. That's that same language people use around Medicaid expansion. It's that you didn't do anything to get the thing, so why would we give you something?
That's right.
No matter what kind of economic effects, longer term or anything. It's just not I don't know. It makes me crazy when people kind of think in this vacuum, you know, and go along with those tropes and stereotypes and, you know, just all of the things that causes that thinking. I mean, I really learned from the teenagers in the Mississippi Youth Media Project, you know, which we did for 3 summers. And as I said, plan to bring back when it makes sense here. But you learn so much from them. You know, there was a young mother who was in high school, who was in there the last summer. And I mean, she was one of the best students in there. And she was just, you know, she was pulled every possible direction, but she was determined. But she had challenges, and she had the child, which a lot of, you know, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like she's doing the things right that you think she should be doing for some, you know, it's like, but then this idea that then we wouldn't help her get to that next place. is just kind of astonishing to me. And it's also, think of the talent and the brilliance that, there's YMP. I do miss YMP. I'm too busy to do it at this moment, but I do miss it. But just what is squelched in that, what possibility is squelched. And then we talk about, you put this in the larger context of the state, and we're talking about women in particular here, but, just the potential of women, it's in our state. If they're just not constantly pushing the same boulders up the hill, is just, I don't know. It's infuriating to me, I guess. I know it is to y'all too, but now I'm back on the bandwagon. So somebody else say something here.
Well, and I want to go back to something that Tracey said a little bit ago about valuing women's work. Mm-hmm. The thing that I thought about was, if we think about all the people who were the best cooks in our lives, those are usually women, right? But if you think about a famous chef, how many women can you name? Mm-hmm. So when men enter spaces, you even have to change the name and make it something different, and make the hurdles different, and make the way you enter that career different, so that it then cuts out a whole group of folks. Mm-hmm. Like, there are, think about it. Think about the cookbooks you grew up. Julia Child's kind of the only person, and maybe the famous chef in New Orleans, woman chef. That's kind of it. That was a cookbook with a woman. Now, there were those collections. There was the Better Homes and Garden cookbook, and there was the Junior League cookbook. That was okay to have that thing, but to have a woman front and center in a kitchen, when women are front and center in the kitchen in most homes, it's interesting to watch how women can be cut out of places where they are pioneers. Mm-hmm. When there's some perceived value that wasn't valuable when there's a new perceived value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my thought process,
Well, I think my question, go ahead.
Yeah.
You still in it?
No, I'm good. That was it. Oh, Todd showing off a male.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Our producer is a male, but Eddie cooks for me. I will say this. I'm kind of an exception to the whole cooking. As he would be able to attest to. But what am I trying to say? So I guess what that brings to my mind, not a question on the list, but and we're getting down here to the end, close to the end. But how do we, from your perspective, Tracey, how do we tackle that psychology, I guess, of both in our state of women believing that we are worthy? Women don't ask for enough money. Our women team, we have to tell each other, ask for enough money or whatever. When we're fundraising, we have to do these things because it's just kind of ingrained in you.
Yeah.
To not step up there to that place and say, we're really good at this. We need support. So I guess that's what I'm at.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what do we do about that?
Well, I think, all of us, some of us, me for sure, need to sort of remember this idea of, like, if you've gotten through the door, you need to make sure you don't close it after you've gotten through. Like, you need to keep that door open and be a mentor and do all of those things. But I think that there are a lot of things that we can all do. And there are some things that our organization does, right? So one is, it's a program called She's on Board. It's a training seminar it's about a day long, that we've done a few times now, that trains women on how to be on a board. And, the reality is that, sorry, you can probably see me petting my dog in the background.
That's okay.
We're used to dogs and children and people, partners walking through. It's life.
Yeah. But, so we do this program, and it basically gives, like, the 101, like, this is what it means to be on a board. Here's how you read a financial statement. Mm-hmm. And the reality of the situation is, like, a lot of this is about confidence. Mm-hmm. You ask a man to join a board and he says, okay, And then somewhere along the way, he may or may not learn how to read a financial statement, or he may have come with that skill already, whatever. Women want to know that they can do the thing.
Exactly.
And so some of this, I think, is about confidence, right? Like, are there ways that like we can create some kind of day-long training, intervention, whatever, so that you can feel comfortable doing the thing that you already are perfectly capable of doing? Like, you know, like women seek out those kinds of things. So how can we, however you do it, how can we work to make sure that we're giving that to other women? And I also think that we need to be better at talking to younger women about a whole bunch of stuff. So like, this is one example. Like, when I was coming up, sexual harassment has always been there. It is probably going to be there for quite some time. And generally the advice that I would receive was, well, if it's not that bad, just let it be and make a boundary, something along those lines, right? Like, it was, you know, and I have in the past found myself basically passing that down the line. And I have stopped that recently. Part of that is because there's probably a lot more momentum since the Me Too movement and all of those things. But like, I've stopped doing that, you know. I think it's still hard. It's still a really hard thing to deal with. We all have to deal with it one way or the other. It happens all the time. But we have to kind of take a pause sometimes and say, just because I was treated this way, or just because I had to manage it this way, maybe that's not the right way. And so I need to also figure out what I can do differently, how I can be different and show up differently in this moment, because there's a place for that too, I think.
Well, you know, when quickly, when Me Too blew up, it changed me how many young women in their 20s I was seeing say Me Too, because I think I had convinced myself on some level that it had gotten a lot better for younger generations. And then I started to realize that it had not, and that I had to do more. I had to speak up more, you know, write more about it, all these other things. So I hear exactly what you're saying, that we have to do those things and draw them into those conversations. Well, I think we could talk like forever here. We're going to have to bring you back. And I got a million story ideas from this. You saw me taking notes as I went. So y'all are going to be hearing from me. Kimberly wanted to get in there for a second, I think.
Well, I just wanted to jump on and say that also applies to women running for office. You know, women think they have to have some high level skill set or some special training to run for office. People run for office all the time and get elected, and are not as skilled as many of the women we know. So wanted to wrap up and say, this is our year. What is this? Our first year. It's our anniversary.
Birthday. Yeah.
It's our first year birthday. And we are super excited that we have forged ahead during COVID. And we want to invite our, what are they? I was about to say readers. I'm used to saying that. Our supporters, members, supporters, our watchers, our viewers, to donate. And, you know, donate what you can. Every little bit helps, because we are a nonprofit newsroom and we need the support of fellow Mississippians, expats, folks that just moved here. If you think we're doing some good work, make sure to hit our site and give us a few coins. That'd be awesome.
And support the Women's Foundation as well.
That's right.
That's right.
Sure. I'll take it.
Yep.
Thank you.
We really, really appreciate you being here with us today. And this is going to be online afterwards. So everybody, please share the show. We get a lot of our viewers after the fact who can't just be here live with us. And then we're going to stay weekly as long as we can handle it. So next week, it's no longer March. So we're going to let a man back in the door. And it's one of our favorite men, Ralph Eubanks, is going to be here with us to talk about his new book, A Place Like Mississippi. And I love the tagline, From Faulkner and Welty to Wright and Ward. And y'all know what I'm going to be reading this weekend, by the way, so that we can talk to Ralph next weekend. So next week, which is Thursday, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Central. And we will see y'all very, very soon. Thank you so much for being here.